listening to Elevate with Anthony and Steve's podcast. Today, we hope to motivate, fascinate, and of course, elevate our listeners and give them another piece of the roadmap to becoming a great leader. My cohort on this journey is author, a Marine, and former federal government division administrator for 35 years, Steve Mattioli.
Too many.
Steve.
Hello, Ant.
Steve, welcome to the show again.
Good to be here for episode 2.
It's excited to have you here.
Yes, excited to be here. I think we got some great stuff today, Ant.
I concur. Last time we spoke about your newest book, Your Finest Hour, and why you wrote the book and who the book could help. This is the second video in a 4-part series with 2 more videos to follow. And today we're going to focus on self-improvement. Steve?
That's right. Accurate self-improvement.
I like it.
Or accurate self-assessment. Better term.
Okay. Hey, first question, and I'm going to come right at you with this one. You talk about creating a new version of yourself in the book. You talk about creating version 2.0. Tell us a little more about that.
Well, Ant, on our first podcast, we dealt with why leadership is important and what the book has in it and why we're doing this podcast. So if somebody really wants to learn more about leadership, this is the first step to take, because it's the step where you need to look first in the mirror and self-improvement before you look out and do anything else. It's accurate self-assessment. And so we're going to talk about a little bit about that today and why it is so important that you begin there, looking at yourself, looking at your strengths, looking at your weaknesses, because guess what? We all have weaknesses. And if you ignore those weaknesses, it's going to hurt you in the long run. Because I'm here to tell you, in my book, it's called Take a Selfie. And the reason I called it that was because when you're looking at yourself, like you're looking at yourself in a mirror, you're just seeing straight on, okay? You're only seeing yourself straight on. But when you take a selfie, what happens? You start looking at different angles. You see the side of you, you see the back of you. You're like, oh my gosh, I never saw that. Well, that's the same thing in leadership. People are seeing you from different angles that you cannot see. And sometimes those angles aren't pretty. And so that's what you need to address is take a good selfie, a good self-assessment of what you really look like and what you need to focus on. So, Anth, I'm sure you use the phone a lot, right? You use the iPhone. You take a lot of pictures of yourself, right?
I love my iPhone.
Are you fan? Yeah, I know you do. I bet you take a lot of pictures of yourself. Well, I got bad news for you.
Uh-oh.
That phone, when you take a picture of yourself, it's really not being truthful with you. It's really lying.
Is there any?
It's lying to you. I don't know a better way to say it. It's lying to you. Here, okay? Does that hurt your feelings?
Well, is there any makeup that you would suggest, Steve, that could help cover up some of the flaws?
Well, here's my point. These cameras now in your phone, in any type of new camera system, they have these algorithms in there, this machine learning. And what it does is when you press that button to take a picture, that camera is doing all kinds of calculations. It's looking at the light. It's looking at your face. It's looking at a bunch of different things. And I've seen this on my own photographs. And what it's doing, it's going to add light where there's little light. It's going to smooth out your complexion. It's going to make you look really nice. You know why? Because you want to look nice. And that's what the phone's going to do. It's amazing what they will do with their algorithms and their machine learning. But here's the point. That's not a good self-assessment. That phone is really not your friend because it's not giving you the real picture. And that's what we're talking about here. We're talking about a real professional picture of yourself and how you can improve. And that's the type of picture you got to take if you really want to see what other folks are seeing and to improve that, to be a better leader. This is the first step toward leadership right here. Look no further. It's accurate self-assessment. Looking in the mirror, taking those selfies, and then going from there.
You know, I think what you're trying to tell our listeners, and it's hard to grasp sometimes, is it's not how we perceive ourselves, it's how others perceive us that's important. It doesn't really matter how we look at ourselves, but what are other people seeing when they look, at us and our mannerisms and reflection? So I do understand where that could be an important attribute to to become a better leader.
Yeah, so let me give you an example of what happened to me and really set my career on the path that it went. And I always have to thank the person, my supervisor, who did this for me. And what he did is he gave me honest, accurate feedback about something that was holding me down. And he pulled me out of a meeting one day, and I always knew it was there. Sometimes you know it's there, and sometimes you don't. I always knew it was there, but I didn't think it was hurting me. And he pulled me out of a meeting one time. We went into the hallway, and he said, "Steve, you need to talk. People respect you. They want to hear what you have to say. You need to talk." And at that moment, I realized that I'm a reserved person. When you see me in a room, you probably won't notice me. I'm not loud. Maybe my brother Anthony is loud, but I'm not, okay? I'm different, okay? There's nothing wrong about being reserved. It's not a crime, it's not a sin or anything like that. But that there's times when you got to come out of your shell. There's times when you got to talk. There's times when you got to be a little bit loud, okay? And I had to learn that, and I had to work on that, and I did, and it really set my career on a great path that I achieved. And that's what I'm talking about. Is that was a flaw. It was an internal flaw that I had that I wasn't seeing, and this other person saw it and was kind enough to show me where I could improve, and it did wonders for me. And that's what I'm trying to say in this book, in this selfie chapter. Look, we all have flaws. You have them, I have them. There's not a leader in the world that doesn't have flaws. Everybody is human. You have the human flaw, okay? Whatever that may be. But your job is to acknowledge it, identify it, acknowledge it, and then improve it. Because leadership is always about improving, right, Anth? I mean, it's always about getting better, doing better. And that's the first step of a leader, is looking at themselves, turning the mirror inward and saying, where can I improve? What can I do better? And when you do that, you're going to notice yourself doing better, doing more, and people are going to notice that you're changing. And that's what you have to do as a leader. You have to constantly do this.
That makes a lot of sense, because even in my own walk, the way to conduct yourself is, conduct yourself in a manner is like you never arrived. You're always striving to get better, and every day try and learn something new. And for a leader, sometimes that can be difficult, because it can be hard to admit to yourself that, you're not perfect, or you have some things to work on. But when others see that, you're trying to improve yourself while helping others at the same time, that can be definitely a big benefit for a leader, to be able to portray that and not use it as a weakness, but use it as a strength.
Exactly.
Well, I tell you what, Captain, I'm sold, and from what you're telling me, and for all of our listeners out there that want to be that alpha dog, and we all want to be the alpha dog. Tell us some good pointers maybe to get started with.
Okay, so this is an acknowledgement of reality, is what it is. An accurate self-assessment is an acknowledge of reality and how you can improve yourself. So there's a couple different ways you can do this. One of the first ways is just how I did it with my supervisor, one-on-one. Somebody who cares about you tells you something. Hey, Anth, I noticed that you're doing this or you're doing that on emails or you're doing this on calls. There's nothing like personal feedback from people that work with you. It's really good feedback. And what I've learned over the years is that you've got to have a little bit of, don't be, people are very touchy today when you say things. You got to kind of relax and take things in. I'm not saying you have to accept every piece of information somebody gives you, but just consider it. Maybe I am, doing this or doing that. Maybe I really do need to work on my presentation skills. Maybe I'm not communicating as well as I can. And sometimes that's hard to take because it's offensive. I had a friend tell me that one of the things I'm going to suggest in here, if you're like, okay, Steve, how do I get started? What do I do? Okay, so there's a couple different things. One of them is called a personality survey. And I've taken a few of these, and I'm not going to mention the name because we're not here to recommend any one or the other. But the personality survey just kind of tells you about your personality. Are you more people focused? Are you a people person? Are you more a results person? Are you this type of person? There's like 4 or 5 different types of personalities. And to be honest with you, I've taken a lot of these, and it didn't really tell me a lot I didn't already know. I knew I was reserved. I knew exactly pretty much where I was at on the spectrum. It helped me a little bit, but they really didn't add a lot to me because I pretty much knew where I was, but that was good. It just validated, what I was doing. But there's another type of feedback mechanism called a 360-degree feedback. And these are, I think, a little bit better because have you done a 360?
I have.
And a 360 feedback?
Yes, sir.
You have. Okay. So you know what it is. It's and there's a lot of companies that do this. They're on the internet. There's actually some that are free through colleges and universities. And what they do is they work with you to send out to you. You give them a list of people you work with. You give some people above you, some people below you, some people that are on the same level as you. And they send out this survey to them. Hey, can you answer some questions about Steve? How does Steve communicate? How does he do this? How is he in given direction? How is he in control? All different kinds of questions. And then they summarize this for you, and they give it back to you in this nice, clean report. And they break it down between subordinates, supervisors, and peers. And it's really a nice feedback mechanism because now you're getting it from the people that see you every day. This is not a survey, it's not a personality thing. And you're going to get feedback that's really good, and you're going to get some feedback that you don't like. And that's the other thing I want to stress here. I had a friend that did one of these 360s, and he worked in an office environment. And the folks in his office, the 360-degree survey, he thought he was a great communicator. And the survey came back, and they really hammered him on being a communicator. And he was upset. He was angry. How could these people do this to me? He was their boss. He works with them every day. He thought he was a nice guy, and he is a nice guy. But here's the thing, Anth. They were just giving him honest feedback. They weren't trying to hurt him. When people give you feedback, don't shoot the messenger. Look deep inside and say, maybe they have something here, maybe they don't. You don't have to accept everything, but don't just discount it off the bat. And I counseled him that, when somebody gives you honest, good feedback because they care about you as a person, that is a gift. That really is a gift, like that gift that I received from my supervisor. And don't just throw it down. Think about it. Maybe I do have some room to improve here. And so that's what the 360 does. It really gives you good feedback from everybody who's seeing you at work, seeing your emails, seeing you in conferences. And it did help me a lot to get those and work on some of the things that came up in mine. So you have the personality surveys, you have the 360-degree feedbacks, and then you have the good old-fashioned friend that can give you honest talk. You ever had a friend give you honest feedback, Anth, on something you were doing, advice, or something, at work?
I like to call it constructive coaching, Steve. The truth hurts, but if you respect the person and you value the person who's giving the information, I think that's invaluable. They care enough to try and help you get to that next level.
Exactly. And and some people will take it well and some won't.
You're right.
I remember when I was one of my staff was doing her first meeting, and we worked with truckers when I was in the government, and she was up on stage, and there was a bunch of truckers in the audience, and these guys are tough, man. I mean,
I can't
if
imagine.
you show any weakness, they're gonna kick you. Okay. And so I'm in the back there. She's doing great. She's going through the thing, and here comes a heckler. Somebody like that hates the government, right? Okay, we run into these all the time, right? And you got to know how to handle them. And she didn't, and she starts basically falling apart up there. And eventually, I have to walk to the front of the room to save her, and talk this guy down and tell him that we'll talk to him later. And after the meeting, she came up to me and she said, "Well, how do you think I did?" Okay.
Yeah.
We got a few things you can work on here. Okay. But here's the thing. I didn't crush her spirit, but I gave her some advice on here's how you handle these people. Don't let this happen and control this. I gave her some good, honest feedback about what she needed to work on before she did her next presentation. Okay. That's what you want. You want people that are going to give you honest feedback, not to hurt you, not to harm you, but to make you better, to make you, improve. And so, that was a positive thing. Now I've had others. I was a mentoring coach when I was in the government. I took some time out to mentor other folks that weren't, as high up in the organization. And one of the guys that I was mentoring, the first interview I had with him, like 15, 20-minute interview, I was writing down notes, okay? First, right on my notes, because I kept my notes, right on my notes I put, needs more confidence. He just came across as not having confidence. And so we did a 360, as part of the process, they do a 360. And what do you think that 360 came back with? Confidence issues, clearly on the 360. But instead of accepting it, he kind of fought it like, no, I don't believe that. I'm confident. I'm this and that. And even when I showed him, the first thing I wrote down when I spoke to him, months before, he was still resistant to take that information in. And if you do that, if you're constantly, I'm not going to accept information, I'm not going to, I'm good, I'm okay, I like the picture that my camera's taken of me. You can do that, but you're going to struggle, you're going to stagnate, and you're not going to keep moving up in the leadership, and you're not going to really do your organization great leadership work, because you know what that says when someone won't take advice like that? That they say, I've arrived, so they're not going to do any better, because in their mind, they're already there. They're already there.
I think for a lot of us, we learn the most when we fail. And when we fail, if there's someone there to pick us up and say, hey, it's not the end of the world, we can use this as a learning moment. We can use this to make you better. That's what a great leader does. He's there to leverage his employees, or it can be your friend, it can be somebody it can be a family member, it could even be your spouse. We can use leadership in a lot of different parts of our life, just not in our careers. And for a lot of situations, I'm a believer that it's not what happens, it's how you react to what happens. And if we're lucky enough to have someone there to pick us up when we fall and let us know it's going to be okay, and as I said in the beginning of this podcast, show us the roadmap, how to be successful, we're probably going to be okay, Steve. Any final thoughts to our listeners about self-improvement before we let everybody go?
Well, first off, I'd like to thank everyone for being here. Please hit the like button if you've enjoyed this video or got something out of it, and subscribe to our channel so you can get notified when more of these come out. We're trying to cover some really good leadership topics here, and we're talking from experience that we've had, and hopefully we can help you in your leadership career. I would just say that please don't take this step lightly. This is an important step to growth And it's something that even today, you're right, Anth, even today, I'm always looking for feedback on how I'm doing. And like you said, sometimes it comes from family members, sometimes it comes from people you're working with, and sometimes it comes from formal products. But what that tells you about a person that's looking for feedback is that they're always striving to improve. And that's what life's about, is improving. If you're not improving, you're just stagnating. So don't take the step lightly. This is the first step toward being a good leader, a great leader, is accurate self-assessment and dealing with the information that you get. Do something with it. You know, if somebody comes up to me and says, Steve, you're really bad at these talks. You know, you're boring, whatever. Do something about it, okay? Go get a course on giving presentations, or, you know, do something. Don't fight the messenger all the time. Sometimes they're taking selfies of you that you're not seeing, and you'll be better off if you deal with the information in a positive way that's going to help you improve. So, and if you have any questions on this, anything we talked about, please put it in the comments below. We'd be glad to answer some of them on the next podcast when we have the next one. And Anthony, you want to tell them what we're going to talk about on the next one?
I'd be happy to. The next podcast, which will be our third in the series, we'll be talking about results. The book is out. It's out on Amazon. It's called Your Finest Hour. And if you've liked what you heard today and you'd like some more information, feel free to pick that up. This is Anthony Mattioli. Thank you for joining us today for this conversation. And until we meet again, we'll see you then.
And this is Steve Mattioli. Thank you for being here again. We'll see you on the next video. Take care.